All right. We looks like we are now live. For those of you who might be watching this later, feel free to. I'll put timestamps down below in the video. There'll be chapters you can skip to the different things we talk about, and then of course there'll be links to everything that we talk about down below in the description, so you can check that out as well if you're watching it later. And then if you are joining now, feel free to put your questions, anything at all, in the chat over there. I think on my computer, it's on the right-hand side. I don't know about for you, but there's a chat right there. You can put them right there. I'll be happy to answer as we go. And then I have questions that have already come in from email. So we'll go ahead and read those and answer those. And yeah, so I guess just real quick. So I make these I do these live sessions so that there's an opportunity to come and ask questions and to kind of get live feedback, live support, that kind of thing. I know how hard and daunting the process of starting a private practice could be, whether that be your solo private practice or starting a group practice. I've done both of those at this point. So this is a time to really just kind of log in, ask your questions, get some support, get some direction, and go from there. So yeah, let's just dive in. So the first question I actually had, and I'm actually just going to read the questions so that you can hear what people are asking. So someone had sent a message and they said, I was wondering if you would be able to help us understand more of the bookkeeping side of things as far as how you do payroll. How are you onboarding and credentialing providers that are going to work with you? Thank you so much for your answer. So this person's asking about how do we do bookkeeping, right? And so there's a couple of things here. As far as for bookkeeping from your perspective as a therapist, there's kind of two things you got to think about. One is like the bookkeeping of your finances. So the money you spend as a practice and the money you make as a practice. And that's going to be the simplest way to think about it. So there's like just standard accounting. And now when I consulted with an accountant, they said that, that's a service that an accountant can do for you, kind of keeping track of the finances that come in and the finances that go out. That's technically called bookkeeping. However, it's often simple for smaller practices, and you can do it by yourself in QuickBooks. So QuickBooks is the program that was recommended to me, and I use that simply for the bookkeeping purposes. And I will log in there once a month to make sure that it's recording correctly the money that's coming into the practice and also the money that's going out. So what am the things I'm spending on? So maybe that's an ALMA profile, Psychology Today. At the end of the day, you're going to have your accounting, your bookkeeping, right? And that's going to be the same for any business. You can do that inside QuickBooks. And then the other thing this person was asking about was kind of onboarding and credentialing and payroll. Now, these are all different topics here, but let's stick with payroll for a moment. So payroll is how you pay someone. And this is going to happen. You can do this inside QuickBooks. However, I use Gusto. I find this to be a really helpful platform to do all your payroll. Within Gusto, you can also do onboarding. You can set up job applications. You can have all of your employees fill out the proper documents, whether that be the tax documents or the I-9 document, whatever it may be. So that can live inside of Gusto. You can kind of think about that as like a mini HR platform, basically, right? And that's going to be separate from your bookkeeping. Now, that will be a part of your bookkeeping, right? So, for example, when you pay an employee, that's an expense of the practice. That will then get recorded in your QuickBooks, in your accounting software, when you're keeping track of what's coming in and what's going out. Now, when you are setting up if you're doing a group practice, that this would be when you would do payroll, when you're hiring people. The onboarding process is going to be different for everyone, but there's a few steps that we take to do this. So the first thing you're going to need to do, and you can do this at any point, is starting to prepare maybe a description of the job. What is it that what's the role you're trying to fulfill? You want to decide whether this is going to be a W-2 employee or a 1099 contractor. I've talked about that in other videos. I'll link those down below. And then you want to interview, right? And there is no formula for interviewing. But there are laws and rules that you do need to follow. These are going to be standard interviewing rule or standard occupational rules. We'll look those up on Google. I'll put a link down below. And then you're also going to have to decide whether you're going to call references. Are you going to do background checks? This kind of thing. And as you hire someone and you find a particular candidate, then Gusto, the platform that does the payroll and all that, is going to help you kind of walk through those steps. So you won't actually feel, you're not going to have like a whole list of things you need to do that you need to do until you really have Gusto up and running, or that software up and running. That's going to really walk you through those steps. Right. And now let's say someone's hired and you have to run payroll. Very similarly, Gusto is going to walk you through all the steps that you need to take. So it starts with signing up for Gusto or some other kind of mini HR platform. There are others. I've made videos about this as well. So I'll put those links down below if you're interested in these kind of mini HR platforms for a group practice. And then once you get that up and running, which they help you with, payroll is not that difficult. You have to kind of add up the hours and the pay rate and all that kind of stuff. It does take some time, so it's not painless by any means, but it's not too bad. And then you're simply going to allow Gusto to kind of run that for you. You click a couple buttons, do a couple calculations, and then you go ahead and you run the payroll. Now, as far as credentialing people, this is separate, but this involves getting people paneled with insurance companies. And that's going to happen in several different ways, right? So that's going to happen either through a place like ALMA or Headway. And actually, we're going to talk about that in a second. Can you really do a group practice with ALMA or Headway? We're going to touch on that. You can panel independently. So you yourself can contact the insurance companies to get paneled. Or you can hire a credentialing company to do it for you. They're not ALMA, they're not Headway, but they're a consulting company or kind of a middleman that will work with you to get you paneled. And then once they panel you, you're on your own, you're fully paneled independently, basically. And in that process, you can get your employees paneled as well, depending on different factors, whether they're LCSWs or LMSWs. And I'll probably touch on that in just a minute because that's something I've been learning a lot about. So credentialing is separate, but that's going to happen after you've employed someone, right? So the first step is if you want to start, like if you want to do this in systematic order, the first thing you can do is get QuickBooks, because that's going to be your accounting software. Now, this is not going to be like, not the way the accountant put it to me, it's not required, right? So you can keep track of it in an Excel sheet, although it's not recommended because things get a little bit tedious. QuickBooks is something that really automates the process for you. But you can get QuickBooks now. You can sign up for that and start using that. That has nothing to do with hiring employees. And then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to sign up for Gusto if you've made a decision that you're going to start a group practice. And then 3, you're going to start that kind of hiring process, making a job description. Where you're going to post it? Are you going to post it on Indeed? Are you going to reach out to colleagues? And then as you find a candidate, you're then going to do those other things that Gusto will walk you through, getting all their paperwork filled out in terms of taxes for the state and the city. What forms and documents do they need to have to demonstrate that they're able to be employed in the United States, this kind of thing. And again, Gusto will walk you through that. And then 4th, you're going to get them credentialed if that's what you want to do, whether that be through Headway or ALMA or independently, right? So hopefully that brings a little bit of clarity into the onboarding process, the accounting stuff, the payroll. It can be complex. I think it's one of those things that it's really hard to wrap your head around before you do it. You can get some idea, which is what I'm hoping to give you here, but you in some ways have to dive in to those platforms to begin grasping it fully. All right. So we have another question. And let me get my coffee first. Take a sip. So someone else asked, can you do a group practice with ALMA? The question was, can you do a group practice with ALMA? And then they also asked, well, can you also do a group practice with Headway? And so let me just give you a little bit of context here. So ALMA and Headway, and I don't know this for sure because I don't work for ALMA or Headway, but I've been a part of both of those platforms for a little while now. I do not think they were initially designed for group practices. I think they were initially designed for independent practitioners. Now, I do think that they're seeing a need and a desire from therapists to start group practices, and so they're trying to figure that out. Now, the reason why I say that is because at the end of the day, when you use ALMA or Headway, each of your providers, if you're hiring people, is being paneled independently. right? So there, if let's say, for example, I hire an employee and I want to get them in my group practice, or they're part of my practice, and I want them to take the insurances that ALMA or Headway have, and I'm going to go through ALMA to do it, or Headway. The way they get paneled, now they're going to use your EIN, which is the tax ID. However, they're being paneled as a independent provider. So for example, if they leave your group practice, they're still going to be paneled with ALMA and Headway. So they are credentialed independently. Yet within ALMA and Headway, what you're trying to figure out is, can I make that work with my group practice? But having them paneled with ALMA and Headway does not get them paneled like under a group contract or anything like that. They are paneled independently. Now, that being said, Headway advertises that they do a group practice, and they do, and I actually use it. And a couple things to think about when you use Headway. Only fully licensed therapists can be paneled with Headway, regardless of supervision or anything like that. So LCSW, PhD, LMHC, they can all be paneled with Headway. However, LMSW, MHCLP, anyone requiring supervision cannot. So this poses a problem with people, because when you start a group practice, you often have LMSWs, or people being supervised in the practice. Not okay, not allowed by ALMA or Headway at all, no questions asked. I hope that's something they'll change in the future, but they're not doing it. So you cannot get those people paneled. All right. Now, with Headway, the way it works, if you want to do a group practice with them, and it works fairly well, if you have fully licensed clinicians, they're basically going to get paneled independently on on Headway, all right, as an independent clinician. Yet you, as the owner of the practice, will initiate this with Headway and say, hey, I hired a therapist, I want to panel them through Headway. Headway will reach out to that therapist and panel them, again, independently. However, they will use your EIN, right? This is your tax ID. And that's kind of one way that it becomes like a group practice. At the same time, Headway also, this is one thing I do like, inside their portal and their platform, they have made it operate like a group practice. So as the group practice owner, I can access all the back end admin things. I can take care of all the billing, all the tedious stuff that you don't want your therapist to have to do. I can do that and have access to kind of like a main owner page, right? At this point, ALMA does not have that. So I think ALMA told me a little while ago they don't do group practice, but I think that they are now telling people they can. It's basically going to be, do you want to work with ALMA as a group practice? And it's going to be a little bit finicky. It's not going to work the way you want it to. You want it to be more like Headway, where it's like you own kind of the portal. You go in, you can kind of control things. With ALMA, from my understanding, is everyone has their own personal profiles. And within their own personal profiles, of course, they're going to access them. They're going to do the back end stuff. They're going to see all the billing feature. I mean, they're going to bill. They're going to do all that, right? So it's almost like that you have just independent clinicians on ALMA, but they work for you. And of course, you can link your business bank account into those portals and things, but you're not able to kind of take over the admin stuff for that particular person, right? It's their profile, their everything within ALMA. Yet I would imagine they also would use your EIN, and then allow you to link the same bank account into all of those profiles. So with ALMA, I don't think it's quite there to do a group practice, especially the way people want it to. Now, the way I like to think about ALMA and Headway, these are tools to help your practice. So one way to think about it is, can you make ALMA's current workflow, can it work for you? So how could you get people, how could you work that kind of back end, issue? For example, all of your clinicians having access to the billing features and having to kind of submit claims. Could you do that? I don't know. I mean, you have to figure out in your workflow. I think as it stands, Headway has the best workflow so far, because they have kind of that built-in feature where you can be the account owner, and then your therapist can have kind of just, the calendar on there. That works really well for me. I like to have the least amount of systems as possible. So at this time, I think Headway is probably the best option for a group practice. I hope ALMA and Headway both improve to make it a little bit easier. But the biggest thing that people don't like is that you cannot have LMSWs. You cannot have people being supervised. All right. So hopefully that brings some clarity to that question. And someone asked as well, any ideas on how to make the best use of ALMA or Headway to get new patients and to fill up my caseload? I'm going from full time to solo private practice starting January 31st. So this is a great question. A couple of thoughts I have on this. Um, the way I like to think about it is at the bare minimum, you're going to have your profiles online. So ALMA, Headway, Psychology Today, and in some way, they're going to do some of the work for you. So, for example, just by having your profile on ALMA is going to be viewed by people. Just by having your profile in Psychology Today is going to be shown to people, right? And this doesn't mean they're going to click on it, but in some way, you are going to get your practice information out there organically just because you're listed on those things. Now, for some people, for some of us or some people, it really depends on who you are. Sometimes you're going to have things that set you apart. And maybe it's a particular school you went to, a particular training you have. Maybe it's a niche that you have. There's something in your profile might draw in more clicks or more people to your profile, help you grow. So if you're someone who is kind of thinking about how do I write my profile, you want to write this from the perspective of the client. So what would the client want to see? What do they need to see? What's important for them to see, right? And in private practice, it might be very different than what it's like in like an agency or kind of a community health center. Clients in my experience do want to know, where were you trained? What kind of background do you have? What's your specialty? So having all those things on your profile could be a really good start to kind of help people engage more with that profile. And this is kind of leading into this idea that you need to do the work to kind of bring people to those profiles, right? So if you maybe you are going to network with people, right? And you're going to send out emails or you're going to call people. Well, link them to a profile, right? And it gets really overwhelming with like all of them, Headway, Psychology Today, ALMA. Have one that becomes your home base. Maybe it's even a web page, your own website, but have a home base that you can continue to push people to, that you can draw people to. So when you're networking, when you're reaching out, when you're marketing yourself, you bring people to one landing spot. And then from there, they can either schedule with you or call you or consult you. But when it comes to the profile, step one, just having it, great. You're a therapist. You're gonna get referrals. How many? I don't know, but you will get some just by being a therapist and being listed on a platform like that. 2, build up the profile, play with it, change it around, change the wording. Add something about your specialty. Try to brainstorm. What would you want to read on the profile as well? Maybe you feel like I can't add to the profile, I don't have enough. Well, then maybe research what's a training I can take. In what way can I build this up so that it is, it's more appealing. It would help my clients more. That's another way. It's more of a long-term vision, right? And then I think third is kind of having that landing page, right, and directing people to those different profiles. So these are just some ways to think about it. Hopefully that's helpful. I think when people are making their transition from kind of an agency setting or kind of being employed to a private practice solo can be really scary. A couple of things to keep in mind. It's the rate of speed at which people grow is different for everyone. For some people, you hear them saying, I get tons of referrals. Other people, they don't get any. And it's never not none. I've never met a therapist who has none. It always is something. It's an emotional roller coaster for you as the therapist. It's a hard process. There's some days where it feels like no one's engaging and no one wants to kind of see you. And then other days it feels so overwhelming. And you're going to work as you grow and learn. You're going to strike a balance, and you'll see that it eventually does work out. It's a learning curve. There's things you can do. Part of it is also just kind of managing your own emotions around this. And so, yeah, I have a video about that as well, the emotional roller coaster aspect, which I'll put down below as well. But yeah, it's a process. And, I think, again, there's things we can do, and then there's things we have to just kind of sit with. Hopefully that's helpful. Yeah. And then I'll be checking my email to see if people ask questions there. But I'm also happy to answer more questions. If you have just logged in, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat. After maybe like 5 or 10 minutes of not hearing from people, I will sign off. I kind of get it. Then people have kind of seen enough. So I'll wait around, for a while, but I'll be looking for emails. Looks like for now we're kind of caught up on questions. I see new people are joining. I'm glad you're here. I was just finished answer some. I just answered some questions. If you're just logging in, feel free to post any question you have on the right hand side in the chat. I'll be happy to answer it. Um, yep. And then after a little while of not hearing from people, we'll call it a day. And actually a couple of things that I've been learning this week. I see another question came in. I'll answer that in a second. But a couple of things I've been learning this week about paneling LMSWs or people requiring supervision. This is a question I get asked all the time, and this week I learned a lot more. So in my research this week, I have learned that in New York, as it stands, and one thing you have to keep in mind is that you're going to get different answers from all sorts of people. You kind of have to do your research, kind of get a consensus of what kind of like the people are saying. Consult with kind of a professional in the matter, and then do your best to kind of make a decision. So I did some research on what insurance panels allow incident to billing. Incident to billing or supervisory billing is one way that a clinician who's fully licensed, an LCSW or something like that, can supervise an LMSW and then also allow services provided by that LMSW to be billed through insurance. So, for example, if I hire an LMSW and they see the client and I follow all the supervisory billing guidelines set forth by an insurer and then bill it properly, that service that was rendered by an LM can be covered by insurance. Now, the only way that works is if the insurance company allows for supervisory or incident to billing. Now, in New York, on my research, I found out that Aetna and Cigna are the two that for sure allow incident to billing, supervisory billing at this time. I got mixed results. Some people were telling me Blue Cross Blue Shield. Some people were telling me United Healthcare. However, those results were very mixed, and a lot of times people would say, no, that's not true. A lot of argument about that. And then I couldn't find any information from those two actual insurers to verify that. And I also consulted an agency who does credentialing, and they confirmed on their end that the only insurers that they found were Cigna and Aetna at this time in New York that allow incident to billing. So if you're looking to hire LMs and you want them to be able to kind of accept insurance, one way you can do that is through incident to billing, supervisory billing, and two insurers, commercial insurers that allow it at this time are Aetna and Cigna. Now, you also want to make sure you follow all the guidelines set forth by Aetna and Cigna, and those you can look up, and maybe at another time we can talk more in detail. But I at least wanted to put that out there. That's something I've been thinking a lot about. And then some Medicaid plans, actually, like Health First Medicaid, I called them a while back, and they also said that they allow LMSWs to be paneled. At this time, they're not taking new therapists on their panel who are virtual. So I wasn't able to move forward with them as of now, but that's the information I got from them. But hopefully that information helps some people. All right, let's see. We got a couple new questions here. So someone had asked me, they had seen a couple for a session on ALMA through ALMA, and ALMA, for those of you who might not know, they verify insurance benefits, they get you paneled, that kind of thing. And this person said that they saw the couple gave them their insurance. It was Oxford, which is usually accepted by ALMA. I think they saw the couple twice, and then they found out that the insurance is now no longer accepted, and they might consider offering a sliding scale. And they're asking, have I done that? What do I think about that? So I have not done sliding scale. Uh, this is a personal choice, and it's something to consider. And a couple of factors in considering sliding scale, though, is if you offer a sliding, do you want sliding scale to be a permanent structure within your practice, right? If you offer a sliding scale to one person, it would make sense that you would have a sliding scale policy, basically, right? You don't want it to be, you certainly don't want it to be one-off thing where you just do it for one person, or you do it in the heat of the moment, and so you just do it, and so now you kind of have this like loose kind of sliding scale that you've never really thought about. You want to think about it from a business standpoint. I know in the moment, if you're growing, you get really scared, like you'll never get another referral, or you got these people on board, but you want to think long term. Right. And so if you want to offer a sliding scale, I think it's great. I really appreciate that people offer a sliding scale. You want to think about how to do that. What are the rates going to be? Where can you be flexible? Where can you not be flexible? And can you offer this to everyone? Right. I think that's one thing you really want to think about. Now, a couple offset things that you can think about to maybe avoid a sliding scale if you don't want to go down that road, is have them check their out of network benefits. If they have out of network benefits, you can give them a super bill, and then they can take it upon themselves to get reimbursed for the session. If they have out of network benefits, it's usually works really well. So sometimes I will encourage clients to check in on that. And then finally, if they want to, they can continue to see you obviously at a cash pay rate. I know this is a hard discussion point, but once you've thought through the sliding scale, once you've thought through out of network benefits, and if you've decided you don't want to pursue, you can't pursue either of those, then you have the discussion about, well, this is my rate and this is what it is. And again, I think in the beginning, these discussions are really hard. It's a little bit scary, but you're thinking long term. And at some point down the line, it won't feel like your whole practice hinges on one client. So do yourself a favor, think long term, and think about whether or not you want to do these things a year from now, when you have a caseload of 20 or 30. All right. Another question, and then someone then that same person asked, is there something in writing to document the arrangement? If you do me a favor, can you clarify what arrangement you're talking about? And then I could hopefully help you out with what you're mentioning. One other question here. Someone asked, what are some of the tedious clerical tasks that new private practice deal with that limit their ability to grow or get started, and for which there isn't automation available? This is a great question. I love automation. I love tools and workflows that work well. And so there's a couple things to kind of think about here. Now you're kind of having me think about what doesn't have automation. And so there's things come to my mind right off the bat. So when you're starting off in private practice, you're thinking about referrals, right? So you're thinking about getting a profile up and running. It's like, maybe it's Psychology Today, maybe it's ALMA, maybe it's Headway. And you also want to, so you, on one hand, you want to have your name in as many places as possible to get, potential clients to see your practice in as many places as possible, right? So that's one. And then you also have to pick an EMR or a medical record or a place where you're going to keep all your documentation. All right. Maybe it's SimplePractice. That's the platform I use. Really like it. There'll be a link down below if you want to check it out. However, I know people are starting to try to use ALMA's they're building like an EHR at this time. It's not where I want it to be yet, but they're trying to build it. Regardless, though, you're going to pick a platform where you do all your sessions, you keep all your documents. You're not going to have an automated system from Psychology Today plugging straight into SimplePractice or ALMA, or from ALMA to SimplePractice. So your referrals, I find, as you get referrals that come to you via email or Psychology Today or phone call, it's very tedious to get those into that one platform. And so sometimes people just let them kind of float around in those like other platforms. So for example, if you get a referral on ALMA, some people will leave it there. I've created a workflow where it's a rule of mine now, whenever I get a referral, it goes straight into SimplePractice. No questions asked. It gets put in that platform because that is my home base. So my encouragement to you, set up a home base where everything will live. And then from there, you're going to create workflows around it, right? So SimplePractice is my home base, all right? And I've already told you my workflow. A referral comes in, boom, it goes straight into SimplePractice. Is it a little bit of extra time? Yes. Is there automation? Not that I know of right now. Maybe someday there will be, but right now there isn't. So it's the most effective for me to kind of spend that couple of minutes taking those referrals and putting them in, right? So that's been helpful, and it helps save some time. But that's a tedious task for sure. And then actually, most of the other things are fairly automated. I think the biggest thing is picking a proper home base. Right now, and the home base is always going to be your EHR, right, where your documents live, where your telehealth platform lives. And again, why I like SimplePractice, more automated. They have a built-in telehealth feature. Boom, it just pops right up. A link is sent to the client when I schedule the appointment. If you use ALMA, now you're also using Zoom. So you have multiple moving pieces. You're sending Zoom invites. Right. So pick your home base and begin to learn how to automate your own processes. And that's why I like private practice. You can get really creative. I use tools like Notion. This is not a therapy tool, but this is a platform I use for like checklists and to-do lists and task managers. So have fun with it, but pick the home base and start building your own automated systems. I think that'll be a good starting point for you. Yeah, so your sliding scale, your fee arrangement, this is going to be in your your practice policies, basically your documentation, your intake packet. There's one that has all your policies laid out. You're going to want to put it there, right, where all of your policies are, right? Whether you're an emergency policy, your time off, when people can contact you, it's going to be inside of there. If you're interested in learning more about kind of an intake packet, excuse me, I have samples of mine. You can't obviously just copy them, but I have samples of mine inside of my private practice startup guide. I have a startup guide that's somewhere I'll put a link to that down below. That one is something you would have to purchase. However, a lot of my videos answer these questions if you comb through some of them. But if you want the startup guide, I'll put a link down below. You can see what my packet looks like. And then from there, you can kind of see where you would insert that into the practice policy section. Someone said they have a love-hate relationship with SimplePractice. This is something I've heard before. And I'm curious, what do you hate about it? What do you love about it? I'd be happy to know. I would like to know that and kind of see maybe we can fix a pain point if there are any. Cool. So yeah, you guys are asking some good questions. If you have more, please. As soon as we go 5-10 minutes without a question, I will log off, but I'll hang around until we get most of these questions answered. So if you're just logging in, I see some people logged in. Please feel free to put some questions in here. Excuse me. So someone just asked, it's a great question, something I've actually done myself. They said, I am curious, what would be entailed in getting licensed in a different state? I'm an LCSW licensed in New York, and I'm wondering if being licensed in New Jersey would help grow my practice. Do you know what's involved? Yes, I do. I'm also was originally licensed in New York State and became licensed in New Jersey. Now, the original reason for why I did that was a couple of my clients were moving to New Jersey. And I wanted to continue to see them. And I figured, why not? Let me apply for the license. So the good news is not too much is involved. It will take a couple hours. So if you already have your LC in New York, you basically have to fill out the LCSW application for New Jersey. And if you've done the application in New York, it can be involved in terms of collecting old paperwork. You need to kind of show them your hours. You need to put your old places of work. It's just the application, right? That you've done it before, you have to do it again for New Jersey, and you have to pay the application fee. So that's something you will have to do. I'd say it'll take a couple hours to fill out the application. If you have all your documents, like you just did the LC application, it'll be pretty easy. And then from there, the other thing that's kind of involved, you have to get fingerprinted. So they'll make you get fingerprinted. That'll take obviously up an afternoon. So you go ahead and do that. And then from there, it's a waiting game. Now, New Jersey's a bit tricky. They'll kind of like trick you into thinking like it's happening quickly. Like I filled out the application, the fingerprinting got done, all that kind of pushed through real quick. And then it was months. I forget exactly how long. Don't quote me. I think it was between 5 and 8 months that from like start to finish. And then I had to email someone. And yeah, I emailed someone. I'll put some of the links down below to, I think I might have a contact down below. I'll put it down below in the description for a New Jersey contact. And they said they were missing something. It was like simple doc. Oh yeah, I submitted my LMSW test scores instead of my LC. It was my own error. But they didn't alert me to that until I asked them. And once I fixed that, then it pushed through. So I don't know how long that delayed it, but things tend to get mixed up. But that's the process. Not too hard. It does cost a bit. It will take some time. It's a waiting game, basically. And then is it beneficial? I think so. Now you're able to see clients in another state, which then allows you to market your practice to an entirely new state. Which I like. I think that's helpful. I like to expand the services I offer to other people, other states. I think so. That's good. Now it might get a little more complicated with taxes. So you want to ask your accountant, what are some of like, what do you need to do when you see a client who's living in New Jersey? Sometimes there's nothing you need to do. Other times it's all state by state. So your accountant is going to have to look into, is there kind of a tax issue, not issue that you can't resolve, but is there something you need to do tax-wise when you're seeing clients in other states? All right. So from talking to my accountant, New York, New Jersey, there's really no issues there. But clarify with your accountant. And then the other thing is you also need to be aware of is that reimbursement rates in other states are lower, not significantly all the time. It depends on the state, but New York, New Jersey, they're not tremendously significant, but New York rates are higher than New Jersey rates. Okay. Not to make a massive difference. And I can't talk, I think insurance companies don't want us talking about rates, and ALMA said no talking about it, but it's not a huge difference. But there is some difference. That's something to consider as well, but it will help you expand your practice for sure. I started to get New Jersey referrals pretty regularly, which was really good, really helpful. Someone asked, what's the benefit of having a business type bank account? What makes it different than a regular bank account? Obviously still separate from your other finances. So there's going to be a couple things. So having a business bank account, like you've already mentioned, is going to keep that separation, which is going to be crucial. You do not want your personal finances being mingled with your business finances. Not that it's not allowed, but easily can make an error when it comes to doing taxes. Just miscalculating a couple things. And when you see clients, you're going to have like constant, income coming in from each session, basically, right? So you're going to want to make sure that's separate. The other thing is when you have a bank account, a separate bank account, you get in, I think separation is the main thing. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the EIN comes first. So you get an EIN and then you can open a business bank account. But with a business bank account, again, it's much more about that separation. It's really helping you establish that business, kind of that business identity, right? So if you hire employees down the line, or you run payroll, you do not want to be running payroll out of your personal bank account. You don't want to be doing, paying employees out of your personal bank account. It just doesn't work. And you'll get a business credit card as well, which then if you make purchases for your business, and this could be anything from continuing ed, if you do anything like that at all, you can purchase it on your business credit card. And again, creates that separation, helps build up, that business identity. Technically, some people don't open a business bank account, especially if they're doing like just solo practice. Some don't. I guess they go through the tedious process of separating all that stuff at the end of the day. Tax season, personal and business is doable. But I found, especially starting a group practice, things get really complicated real quick. So that separation is going to be really helpful. Now, to open the business bank account, you need your EIN, your tax ID. And this gets a little complicated. This gets into establishing a PLLC or some sort of business entity. And I've made videos about that as well. I'll put those down below. But great question. But this is similar to what I said before. Think long-term. You might not need a business bank account now if it's just you with a small caseload, but do you plan to grow? Do you plan to hire people? Do you plan to, see more people? A business bank account, in my opinion, is always going to be a good step. All right. Cool. So let's see. Any other questions on the email? All right. It does not look like we have any other. We're caught up on questions. Again, I'm happy to keep answering questions until we have a little bit of a silence here. But yeah, please keep asking in the chat. So someone asked, they've transitioned over to ALMA, but have SimplePractice because I have current cash pay clients. Can I transfer insurance carriers over to SimplePractice? Excuse me. Clarify for me. Are you trying to take, basically you're paneled with ALMA now. Are you trying to kind of take that information, like the ALMA stuff, and kind of get it into so be paneled through ALMA, but have that reflected in SimplePractice? Is that what you're asking? Um, I was not able to take cash pay, so I'd like to offer that to current clients. Okay, so I'll try to answer this. I'll try to answer both angles. Excuse me. So if you are paneled through ALMA, right, then of course then they kind of, you're going to submit claims through ALMA. You're going to do all that. If you're using SimplePractice as your EHR, where you're keeping medical records and you kind of have historically been using that, you cannot kind of get the insurance info from ALMA and submit those claims through SimplePractice. That just won't work. You'll have to create a workflow to submit claims in ALMA, but then keep records in SimplePractice. If you are planning to stick with ALMA and you want to be using their kind of EHR and keep your records there, you can do the opposite. So you can transfer your cash pay clients into ALMA and do cash pay through ALMA, because they have that feature as well. You can build a credit card, you can be cash pay. And then that way you're kind of taking all of your things from SimplePractice and transferring them over to ALMA. Personally, I wouldn't do that just because I want a fully built out EHR like SimplePractice. So usually what I'll do is I've created a workflow where I'll use SimplePractice and then I'll just submit claims in ALMA, but then kind of reflect that in SimplePractice. So it works that way. Basically, you can do cash pay in ALMA if you want to just live there. If you want to keep SimplePractice and live there, then you're going to have to use both. You're going to have to submit claims in ALMA and then reflect that in SimplePractice. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did. Did that give you some clarity, or am I missing anything? Awesome. Again, this kind of goes back to picking your home base. What do you want it to be? And some people are starting to switch over to ALMA because they're building out an EHR. But again, I don't think it's built out enough. And that's my personal opinion. Cool. All right. So I'm going to hang out for 5 more minutes. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. But in 5 minutes, no matter what, I'm going to log out and we'll call this one a day. I'll be doing these regularly, so don't feel like this is the last time. You can ask questions. If you want to ask questions, feel free to email me throughout the week, and I will go ahead and answer questions in the next live video. But I'll be trying to hold these regularly. But 5 minutes, we have 5 minutes left, and then I'm going to call it a day for this. So if you're just logging in, feel free to ask your question, and hopefully in the next 4 or 5 minutes, I can answer it for you. And this will be available to watch later, just so you know. Also, if you're here and you're brand new and you've never been here before, please do go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I know that's like a very shameless plug, but it does help. It helps me kind of grow, and it helps me to help more people, actually. It's much more about helping other people learn about private practice. I want this information to be available because it can be so hard to find one place where this information lives. So I'd like to be that resource. And feel free to share my videos or this channel with other people if you think it would help them. You're welcome. For those of you who are thanking me, you're welcome. I was really hoping that there would be something like this when I was starting, and I would find good resources here and there, but they were just parsed out everywhere. So I want to make this home base, and also talking to someone, right? This is, we're not having we're not talking face to face, but we can live the kind of dialogue live. This is much more helpful, I feel like, than just kind of reading tons and tons of articles. So yeah, I'll do this hopefully every Friday, but stay tuned, because I will make announcements I usually am on YouTube, or YouTube and LinkedIn actually is where I spend a lot of time, but mostly YouTube. So stay up to date there. We got about 3 more minutes. Excuse me. All right. If anyone's just logging in, I'm going to log off in just about a minute or two. If any last minute questions, go ahead and put them in there. But we're going to, in about a minute and 30 seconds, we'll be calling it a day. All right. Great chatting with everyone. And again, I'm doing this regularly, so feel free to check back, and then also check out all my other videos. I have a ton of them, a lot of information out there. All right, guys, I will see you later.